Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 on a Saturday morning. It is time to start the coffee and sketching and coffee. I don't know, today the priority seems to be coffee. Usually the priority is sketching. Today the priority seems to be coffee. Coffee. There's no rum in my coffee. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe on Saturdays we ought to put the rum back in the coffee. But right now there's no rum in my coffee. It is a beautiful morning here in Houston, America. It's like upper 60s. It's supposed to be clear skies today. And there's an art festival in Fort Bend that I think I may try to attend. I think that might be fun. But I don't know that I want to stay awake for it. The temptation is to go back to bed for a couple hours because it's Saturday and I can. I know, my mom's in the chat room. She says, that sounds fun. I know, it sounds fun. It's like, I can just get on the motorcycle and go. Maybe wake girl 2 up, take her with me. Put her on the back of the motorcycle and the 2 of us just go to Fort Bend. I think that sounds like a lot of fun, but so does sleeping. Sleeping sounds like a lot of fun. But you know, I read a book, and I talk about this book often. I can't really remember the name of it right now. It talked about how the human brain measures time and why it feels like your life is slipping away from you. And the premise is that the human brain does not measure time linearly. The human brain doesn't measure time in a timeline. The human brain measures time in events, and it puts the same amount of time between each event. So if something major happens to you in September, for instance, the birth of a baby, or a vacation you took, something that creates a core memory, to quote Disney. If there's something out there that creates a core memory in September, and then you don't have another core memory event until June, but you have one in June and you have one in July, your brain will tell you they're the same distance apart. So like, the thing that happened in July, as far as your brain is concerned, the thing that happened in June was 2 weeks ago, and so was the thing that happened in September. Now, intellectually, you know it's not. You can go back and you can say, well, no, wait, now that was September. I know that was September. But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it was just yesterday. And that is because your brain doesn't recognize time the way we intellectually recognize time. Your brain only recognizes events. Oh, wait a minute, something's off here. Yeah, that's more like it. Your brain only recognizes events. Now, what that means is the fewer events you have, the faster time seems to just fly by. That's the premise. The fewer events you have, the faster time flies by. So if you are not doing cool things like getting on the motorcycle on Saturday morning and heading out to the Fort Bend Art Festival, you're not creating those core memories that will tell your brain that something's happened and set a spot in your timeline. Now, the guy that wrote the book actually has a lot of research to support this idea. But I mean, you're talking about the way you perceive time. It's not like I can hook a device up and measure the accuracy of it. But anecdotally, I can tell you it sounds perfectly reasonable. Because I can't tell you how many times I've thought of something that happened just the other day, and it was 15 years ago. And so it makes sense to me and it makes me want to go out and have adventures just so that I don't wake up one day and I'm 100 years old wondering what happened to my life. And why it just seems like it just flew by. I wonder, is there some kind of interview process that makes mermaids choose which scallops are going to be bras and which scallops are going to be friends? Because I wonder this every time I see a mermaid using a scallop as a bra. Somehow some scallops got it a little better than the other scallops, I'm thinking. So we're drawing a mermaid today. Again. You know, one of the joys of the randomogrifier is that you don't know what you're going to get. You just get what you get. One of the downsides of the randomogrifier is that sometimes you get the same thing out of a set. We got a lot of stray lines there. Let's clean them up. Yeah, girl 2. My mom's talking about how her and my daughter call those events adventures. We're going on an adventure. We love an adventure. My poor dogs don't know what to do. I can hear them upstairs messing around. They don't know what to do. It's Saturday, so the wife's still asleep. The kids are still asleep. So they think they're supposed to stay in the room and be quiet, but I'm not in the room, and they don't like that. Where's Daddy? What's Daddy doing? How come Daddy's not in the room? Should we go check on Daddy? We need to go check on Daddy. What's wrong with Daddy? Oh. Yeah, she is so much larger. Says she is so much larger than Mrs. Claus. She absolutely is. Mrs. Claus was tiny. All right. But yeah, going to Fort Bend today sounds like a fun time. And we may do it. We'll have to see. This shoulder should be right there. Shouldn't be as far out as I drew it initially. Kind of measure stuff against other stuff. It shouldn't be that far away from the shell. There we go. And then, because there should be body between the shell and the arm. Shell has shading. This shell has shading. This arm back here has shading all the way down. Hey, Maze World. Good morning. You caught us at a very exciting part of the morning where I can't talk because I'm arting. Can't talk, arting. What were we talking about? Were we talking about mermaids, or were we talking about the Random Object Randomogrifier, or are we still talking about going to the arts festival in Fort Bend? I don't remember. Maybe I need more coffee. Arts Festival, yeah. I mean, that does sound like a good time, doesn't it? I'm still making corrections here. There's some spacing issues. What do you think? Do you think mermaids have knees? Sometimes you see mermaids. I think one of my favorite paintings of a mermaid is from the mid-1700s. And the fish part of the mermaid doesn't actually start until about the knees. The scales come up the thigh, come up the outer part of the thigh, and it don't actually combine into the fish part until the knees, and then it turns into more of an eel-like serpentine tail while they're seducing a sailor to drag him down to his death. And then the question is, I have lots of questions about mermaids because, you know, there's so much folklore about them, and every seafaring society has, every seafaring culture has some story of sirens and mermaids. So then the question is, do the mermaids lure the sailors to death because they're trying to kill the sailors, or do they lure the sailors to death because they love the sailors and they're just trying to get them in the water and they don't understand why the sailors can't breathe underwater? And I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question. Hi, Nora. But I do like the painting where the mermaid scales don't start until about the knees, because that makes a whole lot more sense of why the sailors would fall in love with them. I am not attempting to draw every scale. What I want to do is I want to capture the shading from the scales. Because the shading will gather, not only will the shading give us the form of the mermaid, but the shading will get closer together and darker in the shadows, and be less highlighted and be less so in the highlights, and will help in the shading of the form. This is so. Back to the question, do mermaids have knees? And which way should the tail go? You know, you always see the mermaid tail like dolphins, parallel to the shoulders. But shouldn't, I mean, it's a fish. Shouldn't the mermaid tail be perpendicular to the shoulders? Oh, thank you, Nora. But shouldn't mermaid tails be... Shouldn't mermaid tails be perpendicular to the shoulders? Like sharks and sea bass? Thanks, yeah, thanks for stopping by, Nora. Alright. So now let's make sure we've got the form shading in place. And if a mermaid and a sailor have offspring, will it look like a fish? Will it have a tail, or will it have... Is there a 50% chance that it won't have a fish tail? Like genetics, or are they just magical creatures? What's your take on it? Because it could just be magical creatures that whatever they do, the magic takes over, like brown-eyed people. Except it didn't work with me. Both my parents had brown eyes and I have blue eyes. So it didn't really work with me. But typically, brown-eyed people always have brown-eyed babies, right? So do mermaid offspring always have fins? And I will say, all of the cultures that have mermaids also have mermen in their mythos. So it's not... It wouldn't be unheard of. occasionally have to stop and drink coffee. One of these days we're going to have to do a critique. We're going to have to set these things aside, because it's not enough just to draw every day to improve. You have to actually look at the drawings and see what you did right, and see what needs improvement. And so one of these days we're going to have to sit down and do a critique. Okay, so in the shadow, there's some reflected light right here and right here, and right there underneath the base of the tail. And the reason that's important is because it tells your brain that that's round. Without that, your brain will read that as square, as flat. And I think her head should be a little bigger. Even if it's not really. I think we ought to take just a little artistic license there and make her head just a little bigger. Just because I like it that way. Now let's clean up some of these stray lines. We're going to have to go back. She's not white, but her seashells are. Her scales are not white, but she has some highlights, but they honestly don't read as white as her seashells. So if I could figure out how to make the camera squint so that you can see what I see when I squint. When you use the kneaded eraser, it picks up the debris. There are no little eraser chunks like there are when you use a nylon eraser. But when you use the nylon eraser, you get the little chunks that you have to brush off the page. And the reason that's an issue is because when you brush them off the page, you smear the graphite. But I can be a whole lot more accurate with this little nylon eraser than I can with the kneaded eraser. Alright, but I have to be careful not to blow on the paper because I have coffee in my mouth and I'll blow spittle on the paper. But even that soft brush, you can see even that soft brush smeared that 4B graphite. That's why I use 4B, is because it's so soft. You can get super dark, but you can lift it right off if you need to. I'll tell you what we could do though. Is we could use that brush. Give me that brush back. Sinadravi. I don't know how to say your name. We could use that brush to do this. Tone the paper. Then I don't have to go back and tone the paper. But I will have to go back in and adjust the shadows. Alright, yeah, so let's make one more pass on the shadows. Make sure we're really pushing our darks. So we can see the edge of our form. All right. I think that helped. I'm not sure I would do it again though. I think the brush I don't like the blurring effect. I'm just not a fan. It worked. It did what I wanted it to do. It toned the paper. It made those seashells. I don't know if you can see how white those seashells compare to everything else now. So I mean, it worked toning the paper, but I don't like how it blurred the edges. But as far as quickly toning the paper, it did a really good job of that. Anyway, what time is it? 6:06? We're not in a hurry today because I don't have to go to work. Usually we have to wrap things up quickly about this time of day, but not today. But at the same time, if I don't stick to the time limit, there's always the chance that I can overwork it, like I'm trying to do right now. I mean, it's so easy to not stop when you're supposed to, especially when you're having a good time. I like doing this. I quit looking at the Mermaid 20 minutes ago. I don't know that that's a good thing, but there we go. See that? Alright. I'm going to change cameras here. And let's go to this one. These highlights, even as subtle as this is, right? Can see how I can make you see that? I'm not sure how I can make you see that. There we go. Even as subtle as this one is right here, these highlights is what gives it form. Without that bounced light, it will look like it's just a flat surface. But the bounced light coming back means that it does curve under your form, and it's catching the light coming back up off the surface. So that's why it's important to preserve. That's why it's important to preserve that bounced light right there, that bounced light in that arm right there. There's some bounced light in that tail right there. There's some bounce light inside this shadow. There's some bounce light in this shadow back here, but you can't really tell because it's not a contact shadow. It's a cast shadow, but it's not a contact shadow. So you can't really tell about the bounce light. But the closer it gets to the subject casting the shadow, the darker it gets. But then you have to be careful because this part of the mermaid is actually darker than the shadow, and you want the shading. You want the shading to find your edges. You don't want the lines to find. You don't want the lines to be your edges. You want the shading to find your edges. Anyway, that's the goal. See, that's not white. Now, remember a minute ago when I said how easy it would be to overwork this? That's exactly what's happening. I am overworking this. Because now what I've done is I've made the background too dark. This is the last thing I'm doing right here. That's it. I'm done. I'm not doing anything else. Much as I want to. I'm stopping. I'm stopping. Why isn't that shadow sharper? Because I used that brush to spread that paper, spread that graphite around, and it took away the edge of my shadow. Alright, I'm stopping. He says as he makes one more mark. What is today? The 10th? Alright. Do. And bam bam. Alright. Let's see, there's got to be a way to make it look more like what I saw. Okay. So. That's what we ended up with right there. How do I show that to you without the glare of the lights? Maybe if I put it up there. Nope, that's not working. Maybe if I go over shoulder. You'd think, again, you'd think we'd have this worked out by now. Does that work? A little hard to see because of the reflection on the camera, reflection on the phone, but I think it'll do. Here, compare it to the picture on the side. I think it'll do. Alright guys, well thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to this every morning. I know we went a little long today. Oh, we went about 20 minutes long, 15-20 minutes long. I know we went a little long today. I hope you don't mind that we went a little long today. It's Saturday. I can do that. I don't have to work today. It is the game where we try to decide, am I actually wearing pants? Because, you know, I don't have anywhere to go, so maybe I'm not wearing, I am wearing pants. I've got my suspenders on. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to this every morning. We do this every morning at 5:30, this sketching and coffee thing, and I hope to see you all again tomorrow. Mwah. Peace out. And we dance. We dance till somebody says they see me dancing, because that's how we know that the lag is caught up with the recording, so I don't cut it off too soon, even though I don't think that is an issue with you.